All right, so we've got this mountain of articles all about cybersecurity and digital transformation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
It's a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, I mean, everyone and their grandma is going digital these days, and the risks just seem to keep multiplying.
Absolutely.
But what really hit me reading through these articles was that cybersecurity, it's not just like some IT side project anymore. It's like, it's fundamental to success, like make or break.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
One article even said that how companies handle this whole build versus buy thing for security solutions could determine whether they, thrive or just barely survive.
That's interesting.
Luckily, we've got you here to help us navigate all this complexity.
Well, I'll do my best.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of building versus buying,
Sure.
let's break down those core cybersecurity capabilities.
Yeah, those are key.
I kind of imagine them like the load-bearing walls of our digital house.
Yeah, I like the analogy.
If those aren't strong, nothing else really matters.
Exactly. So let's start with identity and access management, or IAM.
Okay.
It's not just about, basic multi-factor authentication anymore.
Right.
We're seeing a huge push towards passwordless solutions, like using biometrics or security keys.
Oh, wow.
It's all to combat, the rising threat of phishing and credential stuffing.
So on one hand, that sounds way more secure, but I can only imagine the logistical nightmare of trying to roll that out across a big organization.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are some of the main challenges companies are running into?
Well, a big one is the whole multi-cloud environment.
Okay.
Many companies are using a mix of different cloud providers.
Right.
And each one has its own IAM system.
Oh, I see.
So trying to manage identities and access across all these different platforms, it's a real headache.
Yeah, that sounds super complicated.
It can be.
What's next on our list of core capabilities?
Let's talk about threat intelligence and detection.
Okay.
Real-time monitoring, that's crucial. But the real game changer now is AI-powered anomaly analysis. We're not just talking about, spotting those known threats.
Yeah.
It's about identifying any unusual behavior that could point to a completely new type of attack.
So like a digital bloodhound sniffing out trouble before it even happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But how actionable is this intelligence, really? Can companies actually use it to stop attacks before they happen?
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just see a blip on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
You need threat intelligence that gives you context.
Okay.
Tells you what the attacker is after how they're trying to get in.
I see.
That's what allows for a really rapid response and mitigation.
So moving from protecting who gets in to protecting what they might access.
Right.
We've got cloud security next.
Yeah.
I feel like with so much data moving to the cloud, this is a potential minefield.
Oh, absolutely. And that whole shared responsibility model can be really confusing.
How so?
Well, companies need to understand that just because they're using a cloud provider, it doesn't mean security is off their plate completely. They still need to implement strong access controls, encryption, and vulnerability management.
So it's like renting a high-security apartment building.
Okay.
The landlord might provide some basic security,
Yeah.
but you're still responsible for locking your own door and, keeping your valuables safe.
Exactly.
A good analogy.
What are some common mistakes companies make when it comes to cloud security?
Misconfigurations are a huge issue.
Really?
Cloud platforms are incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
but they also offer a lot of ways to accidentally expose data.
Oh, I bet.
If you're not careful,
Like what?
we see companies leaving sensitive storage buckets open or granting overly permissive access to users.
Yikes.
Yeah, it happens more than you'd think.
Okay, so even with the best cloud security in place, you're still only as strong as your weakest link, right?
Exactly. And that brings us to data protection and encryption.
Okay.
It's not just about compliance anymore.
Right.
It's about protecting your most valuable asset,
Your data.
your data. We're seeing a shift towards techniques like homomorphic encryption. What's that?
It allows data to be processed while it's still encrypted.
Oh, wow.
So it reduces the risk of exposure even during use.
That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But in a world where data breaches are becoming so common,
Yeah,
these kinds of advancements, they feel essential.
they do, for sure.
Yeah.
So next up, we have endpoint security.
Right.
And with so many devices accessing company networks these days,
Yeah,
this must be a real challenge.
it is. And the pandemic-driven shift to remote work has only made things more complex.
Oh, of course.
We're seeing a surge in those sophisticated attacks targeting endpoints.
Because
Because cyber criminals, they know that employees working from home, they might not have the same level of security as they would in the office.
So are we all just doomed to live in a constant state of paranoia about our devices being compromised?
Not necessarily. There are some really interesting developments in endpoint security.
Oh, like what?
Like zero trust network access, which assumes that every device and every user is potentially compromised. And it verifies every single connection attempt.
So even if an attacker manages to get into one device,
Yeah,
they're essentially locked out of everything else.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really effective way to contain a potential breach.
That makes sense. But even with all these preventative measures in place, breaches still happen.
It's true.
That's where incident response and recovery come in, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the time to think about incident response is not when you're in the middle of a crisis.
Right.
It's about having a plan, testing it regularly,
Yeah.
and making sure everyone knows their role.
So it's like having a fire drill for your digital infrastructure.
I like that.
Knowing where the exits are and how to react calmly under pressure can make all the difference.
Absolutely. That brings us to our last capability,
Okay.
but certainly not least, compliance and risk management.
Right.
It's not just about ticking boxes to meet regulatory requirements anymore.
So what is it about?
It's about understanding your own unique risk profile
Okay.
and developing a security strategy that addresses your specific vulnerabilities.
So companies need to be proactive about identifying potential risks and taking steps to mitigate them
Exactly.
rather than just reacting to regulations after they've already been implemented.
Yeah, that's a much better approach.
What are some of the biggest challenges companies are facing when it comes to compliance these days?
Well, one is the constantly evolving regulatory landscape.
Oh, yeah.
New laws and regulations are coming out all the time,
I can imagine.
and it can be tough to keep up.
Yeah, for sure.
Another challenge is managing data privacy across different jurisdictions, each with its own set of rules and requirements.
It sounds like compliance is becoming increasingly complex,
It is.
especially for global organizations operating in multiple countries.
Definitely.
So we've covered those 7 core capabilities, from controlling access to managing risk.
We have.
Now, the big question is, how do companies actually implement these capabilities in the real world?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's one that we'll explore in detail next as we delve into that age-old dilemma of build versus buy.
All right, I'm ready to unpack that dilemma. This is where things get really interesting.
So picking up where we left off, let's dig into this whole build versus buy dilemma when it comes to cybersecurity solutions.
Yeah, it's a classic decision, and I imagine there are no easy answers.
Not really. It depends on a lot of factors.
Right. It's kind of like choosing between, hiring a personal chef or learning to cook yourself.
I like that analogy.
Both have their appeal, but the best approach really depends on your specific needs and circumstances.
Exactly. So let's start by looking closer at the build approach.
Okay.
This basically means developing and maintaining those cybersecurity capabilities in-house.
So using your own team and resources?
Exactly. Full control, but also full responsibility.
Makes sense. So what are the main advantages of going down that path?
Full customization is a big one. When you build your own solutions, you can tailor them to your organization's specific needs.
Right.
This is especially attractive for companies with complex IT environments, industry-specific security needs, or those operating in highly regulated sectors like healthcare or finance.
Yeah, I can see that. So it's like having a bespoke suit versus buying something off the rack.
Yeah, perfect analogy.
You get that perfect fit, but it comes at a price.
It does, and the cost factor is often the biggest hurdle.
I bet.
You're not just talking about the initial investment in technology and infrastructure, but also the ongoing cost of finding and keeping those top cybersecurity professionals.
Which are in high demand.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And it's not just about technical skills either, right?
No, you need people who understand your business, your industry, and your specific risk profile.
That's a tall order.
It is building a strong security culture internally that takes time and dedicated effort.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's about creating a culture of shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Where security is everyone's job, not just a specialized team.
So building in-house offers more control and customization, but it also requires a lot of investment and a long-term commitment.
It does.
Okay, let's flip the script and talk about the buy approach,
Yeah.
which is about acquiring those security solutions from outside vendors.
Right. So with the buy approach, speed and efficiency are the main drivers.
Okay.
Buying those ready-made solutions allows companies to deploy essential security capabilities much faster.
Because they don't have to build everything from the ground up?
Exactly. And this can be a big plus for startups and smaller companies that might not have the resources or expertise to build their own solutions.
It's like subscribing to a meal kit service versus growing all your own vegetables.
I like that.
You get the convenience and the speed,
Yeah,
but maybe a little less control over those ingredients.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
One of the main concerns with buying is that potential lack of customization.
Okay.
Vendors offer a range of solutions,
Mhm.
but they might not perfectly align with your specific needs.
So you might have to compromise or adapt your processes to fit the technology?
Yeah, sometimes. And then there's the whole issue of data privacy and control.
Oh, right.
You're essentially entrusting a third party
Right.
with your sensitive information.
Which requires a lot of trust and due diligence in choosing the right vendor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to carefully evaluate their security practices, their data handling policies, their compliance certifications before handing over your digital keys.
That sounds like a lot of homework.
It is, but it's essential.
Yeah.
And integration can also be a challenge.
How so?
You have to make sure that whatever solution you buy,
Mm-hmm.
it plays nicely with your existing systems and workflows.
So there are definitely pros and cons to consider with both approaches.
Definitely.
But I'm curious, with the rise of cloud computing and just how complex the threat landscape has become, are we seeing a shift in how companies are approaching this whole build versus buy dilemma?
We are.
Yeah.
The lines are definitely blurring.
How so?
Lots of companies are going for a hybrid approach.
Okay.
They're combining the best of both worlds.
I see.
So they might build those core security capabilities in-house while also using third-party solutions for more specialized areas,
Like what?
like threat intelligence, vulnerability management, or incident response.
So it's not an all or nothing choice anymore.
Nope.
Companies are being more strategic about where to focus their internal resources and where to bring in outside expertise.
Right. It's about flexibility.
That makes sense. It's about striking that balance between control and flexibility, cost and efficiency.
Exactly. But beyond all the technical stuff, there's also a fundamental shift in how companies think about cybersecurity in the context of digital transformation.
Oh, how so?
It's not just about preventing those breaches anymore.
Yeah.
It's about enabling growth and innovation.
So security is a driver of business value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a key point in one of the articles you shared.
Right, the one that talks about a cost-centric versus a value-driven approach to security.
Exactly. And this is where we see a real difference in how organizations are navigating the digital world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's unpack those two approaches.
Sure.
Let's start with that cost-centric model,
Okay.
which I'm guessing is all about minimizing spending on security.
Yeah, that's often the case.
Okay.
Organizations with that cost-centric mindset, they see cybersecurity as a necessary evil,
Right.
an expense to be minimized rather than an investment that can bring real returns.
So it's like patching up holes in a sinking ship instead of investing in a new one built to weather the storms.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
This approach often leads to those reactive security practices, right?
It is. Companies only address vulnerabilities after something bad has already happened.
Oh, so they might skimp on security training delay software updates?
Yeah.
Or pick the cheapest solution without really thinking about whether it's actually effective?
It happens all the time.
It sounds like a risky strategy.
It is. Because the cost of a data breach can be way higher than any savings from cutting corners on security.
Not to mention the reputational damage and the loss of customer trust.
Exactly. And those can be crippling.
So the cost-centric approach, it's like playing Russian roulette with your business.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
What about the value-driven approach? How is that different?
Companies that embrace a value-driven approach, they see cybersecurity as a strategic enabler,
Okay.
not just a cost center.
Right.
They understand that a strong security posture can actually help them grow their business and gain a competitive edge.
So they're not just trying to avoid losses.
No,
They're actually using security to create value.
exactly. And they're proactive about identifying and mitigating risks.
Yeah.
They build a culture of security awareness,
Uh-huh.
and they bake security into every part of their operations.
So they're not just playing defense, they're using security to create opportunity.
Exactly. They see it as an investment that can unlock innovation and build trust with customers.
Which ultimately leads to a more resilient and successful business.
Right. In today's digital world, security isn't just an IT issue.
Right.
It's a business imperative.
And the companies that get that are the ones that are going to thrive.
It's exactly. So we've talked about build versus buy and cost-centric versus value-driven security.
We have.
But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't really talked about yet, the human element.
Right, because technology is only part of the equation.
It is.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, it's cybersecurity, it's about people.
People are both the weakest link and the strongest asset.
You said it. And that brings us to a topic that deserves its own deep dive, how digital transformation is changing not just the tech of security, but the human side of things as well.
Okay, so we've talked about the tech, the strategies, but like you said, cybersecurity, it really all comes down to people in the end.
It does.
And, these articles talked about how digital transformation is really changing those roles and responsibilities when it comes to actually protecting data.
It's a huge shift. It used to be you had your IT security team, right?
Right.
They were like the guardians of the digital castle.
The knights in shining armor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now with cloud, with everyone working remotely with everyone, using software for absolutely everything, the attack surface has just exploded.
Right. It's not just about locking down servers in a basement anymore.
Nope, not at all.
So how do you even start to create a security culture when it feels like everyone is a potential vulnerability?
Well, I think awareness is the foundation.
Okay.
You can have the most cutting-edge tech in the world.
Right.
But if your employees are clicking on phishing links or using weak passwords, it's all for nothing.
I see this all the time, like people using the same password for everything.
Yeah.
Or leaving their laptop unlocked at a coffee shop. It makes me cringe.
Yeah, it's a little scary how little people think about basic security hygiene.
It is. So what can be done?
Training is crucial.
Okay.
And not just like those one-off mandatory things, ongoing engaging programs that teach people how to actually spot threats, protect their devices, and report anything that seems suspicious.
So it's not just about checking boxes. It's about actually empowering people to be part of the security solution.
Exactly.
Right.
And that empowerment, it goes beyond training.
How so?
It's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable speaking up.
Yeah.
If they see something that seems off, without being afraid of getting blamed or ridiculed.
Because often employees are the first line of defense.
That's right.
They might notice something like a weird email or an unusual login attempt before any automated system even picks it up.
Exactly. And it really goes back to leadership.
Okay.
If security is a top priority from the top down, it sets the tone for the whole organization.
Right.
When leaders actually model those good security practices, it encourages everyone else to follow suit.
It's like that saying, what gets measured gets managed.
Yeah, exactly.
If security is a key performance indicator, it gets the attention it deserves.
Absolutely. And it's not just about saying the right things.
Right.
It's about putting your money where your mouth is.
Backing it up with resources.
Exactly. Investing in that security training, providing secure tools and tech.
Yeah.
Making sure that the security team has the authority and the support they need.
To actually do their jobs effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, let's be honest, security is often seen as a cost center.
Yeah.
Like something that slows things down.
Right.
But the reality is a security breach can bring everything to a screeching halt.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's important to frame security as an enabler of innovation.
Okay.
When it's seen as a partner, not a roadblock.
Yeah.
It's much easier to integrate it into every aspect of the business.
So we've come full circle.
We have.
We started by talking about those core capabilities, the tech, the build versus buy decisions. But at the end of the day, it really is all about people.
It is cybersecurity in the age of digital transformation.
Yeah.
It's a team sport.
That's a great way to put it.
It requires everyone from the CEO to the intern to understand the risks and play their part in protecting the company.
And I think that's such a powerful message for our listeners.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's not just about having the latest firewall or antivirus software.
No.
It's about creating that culture of awareness, responsibility, and collaboration.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have. It's been a great discussion.
From the tech to the strategy to the human element,
yeah,
we've really explored all the different facets of cybersecurity in the age of digital transformation.
I think we've given our listener a lot to think about.
I hope so. Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
Everything we talked about today, it's not just for big companies or tech giants.
No way.
This applies to everyone.
It does.
Every individual, every business, every organization that's operating in the digital world.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity is no longer just an IT issue.
It's a societal issue.
Exactly. And it's one that requires all of us to be informed, engaged, and proactive.
So whether you're a cybersecurity expert or just starting to learn about this stuff, remember that learning is a continuous journey.
It is.
Stay curious, stay vigilant, and never stop asking questions.
Great advice. And remember, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
By sharing knowledge, collaborating, and supporting each other,
Uh-huh.
we can create a more secure and resilient digital future for everyone.
I love that. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.